from the post-game show, Mike Missinelli. Mike, hope you had a good holiday.
Big Sills. I wanted you to see this here today, what I'm wearing. You see that? You got that? This is especially for you.
I didn't see it.
This is in your honor.
Dude, I tell you what, Franklin's changed it around, man. You had a good year this year. They did a nice job.
He hasn't turned it around. Stop it. Stop. You're gonna
then again, it's the
right out of the shoe. You're gonna get me to listen. It's nice that Penn State had a good year, and maybe next year with the two kids coming back, running back, and the quarterback, but they're not as good as Ohio State or Michigan. And I'm tired of Penn State fans saying, "Oh, look how wonderful he is." Come on, you got to get into the big tournament. Now they're going to get in because of the 12 teams, but all of these years I've been suffering. That's why I wrote the damn book way back '86. I thought it had good shelf life because they weren't going to win another one for a while.
Listen, I'm with you. You've got to get to the national championship game, and you've got to get to the postseason, and you've got to be in the Final Four to be considered a legitimate program. What we saw last night, there's no way Penn State is even remotely close to what we saw with that Georgia team.
No, they're not remotely close to Ohio State either. So, dude, that's the thing. When you tell me that Franklin's a good coach, get past Ohio State. Get in the tournament once, and then I'll be convinced. So, yeah, I know we're not talking about Penn State here. I just wanted to wear this because I know this is a logo that's near and dear to your heart.
Oh, God.
Yeah, there you go.
I tell you, man, that game still gives me shivers here. Mike, I want to quote something to you here. This is the last 11 weeks of the defense that the Eagles have played against quarterbacks with completion percentages. These are the last 11 weeks. Matt Ryan, 72%. Aaron Rodgers, 69%. Daniel Jones, 67%. Dak, 77%. Andy Dalton, 82%. Some dude named Webb, 60%. I mean, you think this team's playing with good momentum going into the postseason?
No, they're not playing with good momentum, but the whole thing revolves around with two guys, really. And you got to hope that Hurts is back to being what he was during the season in really the throes of his excellence. And you got to hope Lane Johnson. Lane Johnson, to me, is the biggest mystery here. He's going to try to play with a torn muscle that needs surgery. So if he's not right, then obviously you can attack from that flank. But listen, it's about Hurts. They haven't really. He's been AWOL for the last couple of weeks, so I don't know what he's going to be when they play that first game. And there's two chances. It's either going to be the Cowboys or the Giants. I'd be much more comfortable with the Giants coming to Lincoln Financial Field and getting him a game under his belt. Cowboys might be tough for him. I mean, I don't know. The whole thing revolves around him. I mean, you could see it. And I know you're not big on him, his style winning a championship, but you have to understand how he opens it up for everybody else. I think that old mindset that a quarterback like that can't win is unless you have the talent that surrounds him. Their offensive line's real good. A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith are fantastic. Sanders is having a great year because of Hurts, because he's always a +1. And you know that, like, they can't match up with him. The first guy that can match up with him when he decides to turn it up is the safety. And so he's got 20 yards of leeway.
Mike, it's not so much that I don't think he can win. I don't think he'll be in games when it comes to seeding in the future. Like, here's what the mobile quarterback and the dual threat guy has done. And I'll give you examples. RG3 won the Rookie of the Year, and he was finished. Kyler Murray injured. You're not going to see him until next October. Lamar Jackson has missed games the last 3 years. When you rely on both ends of that guy to have to be healthy, Mike, he's going to miss significant games.
Well, listen, he may, but let's talk about what they are now. All those quarterbacks you mentioned, absolutely correct. However, none of those quarterbacks had the surrounding cast. So this is like a new planet here with him, and he has excelled in this system with all those guys around him, because who do you play? I mean, really, they're so dynamic offensively. And with the threat of him turning it up on those zone reads, they've got a great tight end who always gets open. The two wide receivers get open. The slant to A.J. Brown is unstoppable. And Sanders is averaging that kind of a yardage here. But here's the thing: he's banged up. He's got a knee situation, so that's also an important factor.
So he's hurt.
Yeah, he's hobbled a lot, and they tried to protect him last week a little bit.
Okay.
It all comes down to whether Hurts can get back to 100%. And the coach saying that he was hurting bad after that game worries me a little bit, because normally they don't say that. So the fact that he says that, he's got 2 weeks now to get ready with that offense that was humming with him, but there's no competition to find out about it. You're going to go in walkthroughs and practice with no competition. So you're taking a blind, kind of faith on he's going to be that guy come playoff time. Now, that said, they're better than any team they're going to face in that first game. And they benefit. Well, see, I think San Francisco is the scariest team right now. So, and the one thing that benefits San Francisco is that they're going to play 2 games at home and get revved up, and they're unbeatable there. When they come to Lincoln Financial Field, they don't have to win 1 road game, and they would be coming in on great momentum. So that NFC title game scares me.
Mike, do you think Shane Steichen is the right coach for Jalen Hurts? And I want to preface this by putting context behind my question here to you, not to give it a loaded question, but man, I'll tell you what, some of the play calling the last month, I mean, like the Chicago game, I mean, I don't get where they get away from the running attack, and because Jalen's not in the game, they lose sight of it. If he's not there, here's their plan, Mike. It's a rescue plan. So if Jalen doesn't see the open guy, take off and run. Is that a game plan, Mike? I mean, really?
I don't know if it's that simple that he'll just take off and run. I think he's done a great job of getting delivering the football when that happens. He's much better than he used to be. And I can't complain about the way this offense is run. To your point, I agree. There are times when I'm befuddled that they don't establish the run early. Now, if you look at the last game, they threw 9 straight passes on a day where they're trying to reacclimate him into the offense. Now, I don't know if that was because they wanted to get him to get some warm-up tosses, like they wanted to get him back throwing and get him back in sync, because that doesn't really make any sense. And there have been a couple times this year where they've started that way, where they throw instead of establishing a run. But I also think last week was influenced by Miles Sanders not being 100%. And they got a lot of carries to Boston Scott and Gainwell. He only had 11 carries. So I think that was on their mind. I think getting Jalen Hurts back in a flow where he's throwing the ball was on their mind. And that game to me doesn't really tell you much, except whether he's going to be healthy for game 1. And if the coach saying he was hurting bad, I can't think that he's going to be like Mr. Superman in that first game.
Mike, he's hurt really bad, and you're running quarterback sneaks. I mean,
but he did it once. They ran it once.
Still,
normally
I saw Patrick Mahomes.
He was very cautious. They put it in his head. Get rid of the ball. If you run, get out of bounds. He did, for the most part, he did that. When he did run, he slid early. So that was in his head the whole time. Now, is it going to be in his head in that game? Because he's got to be reckless abandon, Jalen, right? He can't be. Yeah. He can't have the mindset that, okay, I'm hurting, so I have to play this way. That's the thing that troubles me about this first game.
Mike, going into the playoffs, who do you think was in better shape, the 2017 Eagles or the 2022 Eagles?
Well, so if I got to tell you, that 2017 team, I was in wonderment every game because I didn't believe that they were that good. So I think this roster is much better. I think this offense is much more complete. The quarterback then was Nick Foles. He was on a roll. I always thought it was lightning in a bottle. I believe a little more in this team, except for the fact that the 49ers are just terroristic right now. And that just I'm trying to figure out what the line on that game would be. The Eagles would be a slight favorite in that game.
I think so. I think they'd be a 1.5 at home.
Yeah, I'm thinking the same thing, point and a half. And that game, the thing about Philadelphia fans going on right now is they're in a big limbo. They don't really know what to think now, because this season has gone from, oh my God, this team's clearly the best team in the NFC,
and you're 14-3.
Yeah, to now where they go, oh boy, is this going to be one of those deals where they've run out of gas and the quarterback is hurt and the offensive tackle is hurt and the running back is hurt and not going to be full strength? This is 2 weeks of agony. You thought, this bye week is supposed to have everybody relax. This is 2 weeks of agony for fans of the Eagles.
And they had to play 60 minutes of football against the giant scrubs.
Yeah, that wasn't the plan.
Seriously, you were hoping to get another week, weren't you? Where you had this thing wrapped up, where you had 2 weeks going into the playoffs. Instead, you really get the only other week. Hey, you mentioned something, Mike. Do you think the Eagles, they have to have Lane Johnson and Jalen Hurts at full tilt to win a Super Bowl, or can they win it without one of those guys?
I don't think that they can, even at full strength, beat the Bills or the Chiefs, to be honest with you. I think both those teams.
How about the Bengals?
I think they could beat the Bengals if the Bengals get there. So that's the team I think they could beat. I don't think they could beat the other two teams. But the thing, if Lane Johnson's not healthy, Jalen Hurts is not healthy, can they beat the 49ers to get there? That's what I'm looking at. I don't really think they can beat the Bills or Chiefs. But I'd like to see them get there for the sake of the city, just to have some excitement. And in that case, I think fans are realistic enough here. Like, when the Phillies lost to the Astros, it stung a little bit, but most Philly fans were righteous about it. So, you know what? That team was probably better. And I think if they get to the Super Bowl and they play the Chiefs, certainly people are going to say, well, that team was just better.
Absolutely. Mike, what's you've covered this man since, I guess, 2000, since he's had various roles, Howie Roseman. Tell me what your overall assessment. Then I'm gonna ask you a question about, the drafting of Howie Roseman. What's your take on him as general manager? The macro view of him.
Yeah, I go back and forth on this. Right now, he's in a hot spot with me in that he did what he needed to do, but he also did that to make up for some mistakes that he made.
He lit the thing on fire.
Yeah, he did. And most people look at it and go, okay, it's okay that he did that. I'm always the guy who goes, well, if you have to make up for mistakes, even if you've done it the right way, that doesn't give me 100% confidence in you. So, but right now I'm in a holding pattern. The way that they needed positions, and they went out and they got those positions. And like I said, this offense was just a pleasure to watch all year.
It was. And that leads me to this. Okay, so he can't draft corners. He had to go get free agents. He landed on Devontae, which was right, but he needed a bigger player, so he went, because of the mistake with Rager, and got A.J. Brown. And then I look at this draft this past April and go, Jordan Davis, 13th pick? I don't know. 13th pick, I was expecting more in the last 3 weeks since he's been off IR. I haven't seen the guy. Cam Jurgens, okay, I'll go incomplete on him. We'll wait and see what happens for him next year. Nakobe Dean is not the steal of the draft. The kid can't get on the field. Now, some would come at me and go like this, Mike, we're a pretty good football team, but not to see any playing time. And then these other guys. I look at the 2022 draft, they've had zero impact on this team. It's a good team, Mike. I get it. Hard to get in on a good team when guys are playing great. But the linebackers can't cover tight ends. They can't cover backs out of the backfield. TJ Edwards has been exposed a little bit. I hear Seth with you saying that. And there's a hole in the defense where these quarterbacks hit that open zone. I think you got to look at it like suspect.
I think you got to look at it like it's a stockpile. Cam Jurgens, they don't know from day to day whether Kelsey's going to come back, and he's playing at such a high level. I would expect next year he's coming back too, and they would have to move Jurgens to guard. But the Jordan Davis thing, they have you have to look at where they have a lot of free agents in that defensive tackle position. So you got Fletcher Cox, you got Hargraves, who they probably will resign, but then you got the two guys, Lamel Joseph and Sue, are not going to be back. So Jordan Davis is eventually going to be a really good player for him. I wouldn't take his look at lack of playing time as being a bust. The linebacker situation is interesting because early in the season they were playing well. And they've regressed, and they can't keep Kaiser White on the field in a lot of situations, and they depend on TJ Edwards, who, you're right, can't cover. So I don't know with Nakobe Dean. He must not show anything in practice. And I know he's smart, but he's a little undersized. Maybe he's a little slow. That's an interesting thing to watch on whether he's going to eventually help them.
See, to me, I think you bring a guy, Shane, or if Gannon gets a job, you bring a guy like Lovey in. And I'll tell you why you bring a guy like Lovey in. Lovey worked with the Tampa 2. This Nakobe Dean looks like Derek Brooks, undersized guy when he came out of Florida State, Mike, 6'2", 205 kind of guy also. Not very big. But in that Tampa 2, they've got the components on that team, and they kind of run a variation of it. Now, they've had to play a 50 front because of the inability to stop the run, but you got to figure a way to get this kid on the field here. I mean, they're just getting nothing out of this. I mean, his drafting, I look at him and go, he's a really good deal maker, Mike, but I look at the Eagles and do this now. Is this team a one-year wonder? There's 15 free agents.
Yeah, there's a lot of free agents, and they're going to have to replace, but they have good draft capital. So, and
they do.
Back to the question, it gets back to the question of whether he can execute that. But see, here's the thing, Dan. They're the number one seed, right? So I can't lament the fact that they haven't really gotten anything out of the draft picks. They've gotten enough out of them to proceed to be the number one seed. And I don't know if you complain about that. And Gannon, for all his I know, listen, I do the show with Seth, and he's a maniac when it comes to non-aggressive defense, as you know. But I look at it and I go, my God, they lead the league in sacks. He plays 4 down linemen, which puts less pressure on his back line, and they played well up until lately. Slay's hurt him lately. So that's another question going into that first game. But their point differential has been dominant. So I can't complain about the way they play defense right now. We'll see what happens. It comes down to it comes down to Hurts being 100%, Lane Johnson being able to get through this, and Slay is going to have to play better. I mean, that's another key.
2 last questions for you, Mike. Dallas, the Bucks, the Giants. And get this, too. The Eagles won't know who they're going to play until Monday night. Okay, so they got to wait and see who is the better matchup, in your opinion, for them in the divisional round?
I think it's the Giants. The Bucks probably, because I think the Bucks stink, but something keeps me from.
You want to take a shot with Brady, though?
Yeah, it's the Brady thing, so you'd rather stay away from that. But I think they stink. But the Giants, I think, would not come in here and win in that game. In fact, I think the Eagles would be like a 6-point favorite in that game. They'd be obviously maybe a 3-point favorite against Dallas. And probably 6-7 against Tampa Bay as well. But I'd like to see the Giants. They have familiarity with how to beat them, and I don't think Daniel Jones can beat them here.
Final question for you. Do you think that in the offseason they extend Jalen Hurts? They make him go through the final year of his contract? Do they address it pre-draft, or do they wait to camp? Because, and Mike, the guy makes 1.4. He's the lowest paid guy in the offensive huddle, and it's why Howie can move around and do a lot of things. And if you give him the signing bonus now, it's a good sign, because his agency's Clutch Sports. They're not taking Philly hometown deals. That organization doesn't take hometown deals for their clients.
What's interesting about this is if they lose the first game and he doesn't play well, what does that do to his negotiating power? I think that they will try to extend him. In a way, they win both ways. If they get to the NFC title game with him, they'll justify an extension at a better price. If they lose, do they go to Clutch and go, well, we're still not sold, but we like to sign you to, we'll give you some guarantee here, but it's going to have to be at a lower price than, the rest of these premier quarterbacks. I mean, it might work, but they're shrewd that way. I'm pretty sure that they would like to get him under an extension, and it all depends on how this goes.
So you think playoff?
They've got to win 2 games. If they win 2 games, how are you going to not extend them at a good price?
So, Mike, you think his playoff, all the things that he did in the regular season, sets up now that conversation on what he does in the postseason? And you know what? Carson Wentz, if I'm not mistaken, Wentz didn't win the Super Bowl, but didn't they give him that contract in that Super Bowl year? So, I mean, what's the difference between Wentz and Hurts if they don't give him that contract extension? Because they did it for Wentz.
You're probably right, but they were so enamored with Wentz being the franchise guy from day one that they fell into that trap. Now Jalen is, he's had a great year. He would have been a contender for MVP if he didn't miss those 2 games. I would probably think that they would probably do the same thing that they did with Wentz. They're not in a position now where they can start over. at that position. So I would think that they would do it, but maybe at a lesser price than the premier guys.
40 million?
Yeah. Would they go to 40 million for him? I gotta be honest, I can't imagine that they would go there. But maybe they wouldn't have to.
So you don't think they pay him Kyler Murray money? 46-1.
Kyler Murray, that contract is out of whack.
Dude, that whole organization's out of whack.
Yeah, I mean, that was out of whack. That was the love of the coach and him. I don't know. I think it's a little different. But you might be right. I don't know. It's like he's got good leverage over him right now, but they've got good leverage too because they say, well, listen, this was a test on see how far you could get us. And, we were the best team in the NFC. And you didn't deliver in the playoffs. So, I don't know.
Because, hey, Mike, real quick. The Dak Prescott deal, $45 million. He's won one playoff game, and he wins 12 games every year. He gets to the postseason. He shits the bed, Mike. I mean, if you're Jerry Jones, I want a cash refund on that, don't you?
Yeah, you got me on that. I don't have an answer, but you're probably right about where that price is going to land if they decide to extend them. So
it's going to be interesting. Mike, I appreciate it. Don't forget, everyone, make sure you catch Mike. Post-game show from Oceans Casino. Those guys do a spectacular job. I watch it all the time. Thank you so much, Mike.
All right, Sills.
Hey, make sure you tell my boy Joe Bell hi. Appreciate it. Hey, he's right, man. Boy, that number is going to be interesting to see on where the Eagles float in on. Mike doesn't think he's going to get 40 million. Mike doesn't think he's going to get 40 million. Whoa. 35? Would you be okay with Jalen's people be okay with 35? That's $11 million less than Kyler Murray. Dude, they're not paying him $50 million. That organization, hey, if he shits the bed and they get bounced in the opening round or the divisional round, they're not paying him 45. They will not. Holy cow, man. Mike doesn't think they're giving him 40. Trade Slay signed CJ Bradbury, drafted corner, linebacker, and running back. We're actually going to talk about that in hour number 3. 37.5. 2-year deal. 37 and 42. Would Jalen go for that? 37 and 42. He makes $1.4 million, just so you know. But then you got to play Gardner Minshew $17 million. You got to play Bradbury $17 million. You got to pay Hargrave $17 million. Where are you getting the money from? Mike thinks that Jason Kelsey's coming back for another year. Cam Jurgens is too small to play guard. He's too small. Dude, the Cardinals are a complete train wreck. So you give the coach an extension and the GM, and you give a quarterback 46-1, and you're not going to see him until next October. Who wants the Arizona? Now, if you're looking for a retirement plan, being a head coach in the NFL is it. Trade Slay and Sills for a meatball parm. Oh, God, I love meatball parm. It really comes down, okay, to the bun. Meatball parm, doesn't matter if it's good. It comes down to the bun. Remember that I told you that. Okay? Nobody answering if Hurts wins, what will he get paid? Well, he wins what? The Super Bowl? He's not winning the Super Bowl. That coaching staff is not winning the Super Bowl. Not happening. They may get there. I picked them to. But that's not a Super Bowl coaching staff. That's not. That's not a Super Bowl coaching staff. They are not going to win a Super Bowl with that staff. Absolutely. Not the current staff they have this year. If Nick adds some more experience to it, you see, one of the things that Sean McVay did, can I tell you one of the most important things that Sean McVay did? When Sean McVay got the job with the Rams, who did he hire as his defensive coordinators? Does anybody know? Does anybody know who Sean McVay hired as his D coordinator so that they could get to the Super Bowl and play the Patriots? Do you guys know who? Who did they hire? Do you remember? Tone's right. They hired Wade Phillips. Do you know who Nick Sirianni hired along with Howie? A CPA. They hired a guy that's could work in a library. Okay? You didn't hire a talented coordinator. You hired a CPA. A tomato can. Dude, these coaches in Philly, nobody, these are going to be the biggest bust since Nathaniel Hackett. So you think you're going to respect a 32-year-old coach when he rolls in there? The only way you're going to get respect is if you have a respected staff. Okay? You watch if this team starts losing ball games. We'll see. We'll see how that goes. Shit, at 2-5, they wanted Nick Sirianni fired. They wanted Nick Sirianni fired at 2-5. I would never trade Sills for anything. That's what Jimmy Johnson said. I done. I'd never trade Sills for anything. I done. So, NFL quarterback rankings. My MVP vote, I waited for the last hour, and my defensive player of the year, the schedule, the draft. We got a ton of stuff to hit on here in the third hour. Sills, that Howie knee pad saying is killing me. Hey, Jameson, seriously, when you walk into the NovaCare Center, it's important to put your Howie pads on. Okay? Got his face over here. Got the equal colors over here. You got to walk. See, I heard this. You have to walk on your knees at the NovaCare Center when you're talking to people, especially in the Eagle organization. You got to look up. Hi, this is Johnny Blow. Can you tell me where Howie is? What kind of questions you ask? Well, here's my questions. Okay, go ahead. You got to get cleared. Yeah. That what was told to me. What kind of questions would you ask him? Who's asking? Me. I don't know. How's your team? What do you like for dinner? I said this to Bob Lang, their PR guy. What kind of questions would you ask him? I told him I would ask Nick what his favorite movie was. I'm not telling you what I'm asking him. Yeah, Bob didn't like that too well. So what are you gonna? What he said he's gonna do? Like say, I'm gonna ask him some questions. I went just like this. I went, Nick? What's your favorite movie? Yeah. Sills, make sure to get you likes. Thank you so much, bro. I appreciate that. Dude is busy worrying about fans talking smack rather than being prepared for his upcoming game. I felt the same way too a little bit. I did. Coach of the year, you think it's Brian Dable? I think it's Doug Peterson. I didn't know, by the way, Miles Sanders was banged up. I didn't know that. So that's kind of maybe why they've been hiding him the last couple of weeks. But at the expense of Jalen? That's why you ran Jalen more in the Chicago game? Because Miles Sanders was hurt? Who's more important, Miles Sanders or Jalen Hurts? You think that made sense? Yeah, so Mike said, well, yeah, Miles has been banged up. That's kind of why they've pulled back a little bit the last couple of weeks on him. So, okay, so you thought it was in the best interest to run Jalen Hurts in the Chicago game more than Miles Sanders? It just didn't make sense. It just didn't make sense. All right. We're going to open up with the MVP. My vote. I have to have it in by Thursday. Defensive player of the year will be next. The QB rankings, the weekend schedule, and also the NFL draft. where the Eagles are. I have a guy here, and I wonder if you'll go here with me on where Howie might go.